Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om. Om Satchidananda-rūpāya Krishnāya Klishtakārine Namo Vedanta-vedyāya Gurave Buddhisākṣine. Shlokam. Aprameyo hṛṣīkeśaḥ Padmanābho Maraprabhuः Vishvakarma Manustvashta Sthaviro Dhruva. So, we were seeing this, the meaning for first name in this shloka, aprameyaḥ. I told this is a very important name, aprameyaḥ. So, to understand that, aprameya means object of, prameya means object of knowledge. Aprameya means not an object of knowledge. That means it is not an object of any means of right knowledge. So that is established. So what are the different pramanas through which you can gain the object of knowledge? That is explained, and each one of them is negated. That it cannot be used to understand the Brahman, to know the Brahman. First is pratyaksha, the direct perception. Direct perception cannot be used to know the Brahman, because direct perception per se explains that the sense object and sense organ, when the sense and the sense organ and the sense object meet, there is a knowledge which is generated. That is what is direct perception. The sense organ may be external or internal, the mind. So the mind or the external sense organ, when they meet the object, when the knowledge that is generated is called as pratyaksha. Now here, self is a nitya siddha. It is not janya, it's not generated, it is eternal. So eternal knowledge cannot be generated through your sense organ perception. So that is negated. Then we bring in anumana, inference, because pratyakshenapi pratyaksha vishayasya anumanena bhutsante nyaya rasikaha tarka rasikaha. There is a statement, pratyaksha, even if the object is directly perceived, these fellows, these logicians, they desire to establish it through logic, inference. So inference is a very important tool for logicians. If you say logic, it is inference. That is why you naturally understand it as logic means inference. So even inference cannot be used to establish the self. Why? Because inference needs two things, important two things. One is the knowledge of coexistence, the other is the pointer. Pointer means the smoke which you see, which is associated with the fire everywhere. That's the concomitance. That is the coexistence we see. Wherever you see this smoke, there is fire. There is a concomitance. There is a coexistence. This coexistence knowledge you apply when you see the pointer, smoke. So wherever there is smoke, there is fire. Right? So there you need to have a knowledge of concomitance. You need to have the knowledge of a pointer, which is impossible with respect to self, because self is attributeless. For something which is attributeless, there can be no pointers. So, and therefore you cannot establish the self. Concomitance also cannot be used for the same reason, because there is no pointer, there can be no connection between the pointer and the pointed. Okay. So the logician still is not satisfied. I told you already, even if it is pratyaksha, I will desire to establish it through logic. Okay, now what is the logic you can use? Even though there is no pointer, we have a logic to establish the pointerless things. Like there is this logic called karya lingaka anumanam, the inference based on the pointer called effect. The effect itself is a pointer. taking the effect as a pointer, we establish the cause. We gave an example of the black smoky room, etc. So somewhere in some old period, this room was in fire, or they performed a fire oblation in this room. We infer. So that Karilinga Kanumana, inferring through the pointer of a effect can be applied. That is what his contention is. We say no, that is also not possible. Why? Because what do you mean by that? Do you say that this effect has Brahman as the cause? Or do you say the effect has some cause? If you say Brahman, the effect has Brahman as the cause, you cannot establish that because there is no concomitance possible. We have already established this. Therefore, you cannot say this is caused by Brahman. Okay. The effect has some cause. If you say that, we accept, yes, effect has some cause. Whatever is an effect has a cause. True. But you have still not established that cause is self. That is still unknown. So you cannot use inference to establish the self. We said that. Then the third pramāṇa is upamāṇa, comparison. Comparison needs sadrushya, similarity. And the problem with self is there is nothing similar to self. Self is one non-dual. So you cannot bring in the comparison. Whatever exists other than self is non-self, which has nothing common with the self. So comparison cannot also be used. Then they brought in arthapatti, the postulation. If a fourth pramāṇa called postulation. First is direct perception, pratyaksha. Second is anumana, inference. Third is upamāṇa, comparison. Fourth is arthapatti, postulation. That also cannot be used to establish the self. Why? Yena vina yad anupapannam. That is what is the postulation's base rule. Meaning, without which is impossible, therefore that should be there. Meaning, without the food, this fatness or this healthy body is impossible. Therefore, he is eating in night. Right? So, that situation is not possible here in the self to establish through this logic, because without the self, nothing can exist. Without the self, nothing can exist. In fact, the self is that which gives the existence and experience nature to everything. So, arthapatti, postulation cannot be also used to establish self. Next, he goes on to abhāvapramāṇa, anupalabdhi pramāṇa. nāpyabhāvagocaro, bhāvarūpatvād, abhāvasākṣitvācca. The abhāvapramāṇa, the fifth pramāṇa called abhāvapramāṇa or anupalabdhi pramāṇa, the pramāṇa of absence, that also cannot be used here. Why? For two reasons. One is the self is of the nature of existence. Existence cannot be established through absence. That is why he says bhāvarūpatvād. See, if you are talking about Buddhist, Shunyavadi, the voidist Buddhist, for him the self is a void. You may use this abhāva pramāṇa, but for us it is impossible. Because self is a satyam jnanam anantam brahma, or satchit anandam brahma. Sat means existence. Satyam means that which is not negated in all the three periods of time, which is also existence. So, existence cannot be established through absence. This is first reason. Second is abhāvasākṣitvācca. And what you see as absence is not perceived through your sense organs. See, you see the pen now, right? Now I am removing the pen from the camera. Now do you see the pen? No, you don't see the pen. What do you see? You see my face instead of pen. Why? Because the logicians accept the seeing the substratum means there is absence of that object which you are talking about. So what we see is we are seeing the absence through the sākṣi. The sākṣi, the witness principle, is what is seeing the absence. And self is the witness. which sees that absence. Now, abhāvasākṣitvācca, since self is that one which sees the absence, you cannot use that absence to establish self. Right? So, that is also the fifth pramāṇa called anupalabdhi pramāṇa. Absence also is impossible to be used to establish the self. Therefore, we are left with only one pramāṇa, which is a shastra, verbal testimony, śaśva-daṃśubhiḥ. For that he says, nāpi śāstrapramāṇavedyaḥ. It is not also understood through the pramāṇa called śāstra, the means of right knowledge called śāstra. pramāṇajanyaviṣayatve'pi, pramāṇajanyātiśayābhāvāt, śāstrajñarūpabhāk. We keep repeating again and again, pramāṇajanyātiśayābhāvāt. It is only gained, the self can be only gained through the pramāṇa, just shastra. It cannot be gained through anything else. We keep repeating again and again. Now he says, nāpi śāstrapramāṇavedyaḥ. It cannot be gained through the śāstrapramāṇa also. What? Why? pramāṇajanyātiśayābhāvāt. pramāṇajanyātiśayābhāvāt. See, what is pratyaksha? Why did we negate the pratyaksha? Because it says generated. Whichever be the pramāṇa, anything generated is not the self. Whatever is an effect is not an self, not self. So there is no speciality. See, when you see pot, there is a knowledge of pot. When you see cloth, there is a knowledge of cloth. There is a difference between pot and cloth knowledge. There is a difference, special difference. But here, there is no difference. Using this pratyaksha or using this shastra, you cannot objectify the self. Therefore, there is no speciality of this pramāṇa with respect to this pramāṇa from the other pramāṇa. From pratyaksha, direct perception, there is no speciality for verbal testimony. So, verbal testimony cannot be used for knowing the self. Because, as we said, self is a swaprakāśa, self-effulgent. Self-effulgent self cannot be known through anything, grasped through anything, cannot be generated. Now, yadyevaṃ śāstrayonitvaṃ katham. Now, this fellow, actually this is a seeker. He is completely bewildered. He says, if this is so, yadyevaṃ, if this is so, śāstrayonitvaṃ katham. How can you say śāstrayonitvaṃ? Śāstrayonitvaṃ means the second adhikarana, śāstrayonitvāt. Sutra, Brahma Sutra, śāstrayonitvaṃ. Because shastram, yasya yonihi, yasya karanam. Or the other way also, yasmat, shastram. Anyway, for which shastra is the cause. For which knowledge shastra is the cause. That is what Shruti says. Brahma Sutra says. How can you declare that? This is a very important thing. We don't use shastra to understand self. Remember that. Shastra does not make you understand self. Shastra does not give you the knowledge of self. Shastra does not bring the self. Shastra only negates whatever is not self. Shastra only establishes the non-self. By understanding the non-self and giving up the non-self, you are yourself. That is why Shruti very clearly says, yato vacho nivartante aprameyaḥ, from where the words and mind turn back. The word and mind returns back without gaining the self. Right? So, there it is not an object of a word or mind. It is very clear. Meaning, it cannot be objectified through the word meaning. That is the idea. It is not that it cannot be objectified. It cannot be objectified through word meaning. Then what? Tantu aupanishadam purusham pruchhami. Another Shruti statement says, I am asking about that Purusha explained in the Upanishad. Tantu aupanishadam purusham pruchhami. Pruchhami, I ask. Purusham, about that Purusha. Aupanishadam, spoken in the Upanishad. Tantu, I am talking about that. I am asking you about that Purusha who is explained in the Upanishads. Please teach me that. That is what the disciple asked the Guru. Now here the Shruti says, yes, it is possible. Whatever is said in the Upanishad, that is the Purusha we are talking about. That means it is talking about the implied meaning, not the word meaning. So word meaning shakyartha is impossible, but the implied meaning lakshyartha is possible. And lakshyartha, even in lakshyartha, even in the implied meaning, we are using the jahat aja lakshana, the third form, which is partially accepting and partially giving up. And that is where the mahavakyas like aham brahmasmi, the ultimate statements like aham brahmasmi, tattvamasi, etc. comes into existence. We partially give up the superimposed state and accept the non-superimposed. We partially give up the non-self and accept the self. Now, that is why he says, ucyate, we answer this question. pramāṇādisākṣitvena prakāśasvarūpasya pramāṇāviṣayatve'pi adhyastātadrūpanivartakatvena śāstrapramāṇakatvamiti aprameyaḥ. pramāṇādisākṣitvena. The self is the witness principle for even the pramanas, all the pramanas. The self, which is the witness for all the pramanas, being the witness of all the pramanas, which are you talking about? Prakāśasvarūpasya, the self-effulgent self, which is witness for all the pramanas, though pramāṇāviṣayatve'pi, though it is not an object of the pramana. It is the witness of the pramana and not the object of the pramana. Though it may be so, still adhyastātadrūpanivartakatvena, adhyasta, superimposed, atadrūpa, not tadrūpa iti atadrūpa, not of that form, not of that nature. So superimposed, which is not of that nature, of the nature of self, nivartakatvena, by negating it. By negating whatever is of not that nature, which is superimposed, Shastra becomes pramana. Means Shastra does not give you the direct knowledge of the self, but it removes the superimposed non-self. That is why the text called Advaita Siddhi, written by this great author called Madhusudana Saraswati. I call him Bhagavan Madhusudana. He says very clearly, Advaita Siddhi, the title is called Advaita Siddhi. Advaita Siddhi means non-duality established. How can you establish non-duality? Because it is self-established, it is ever established. You cannot establish non-duality. So he says, no problem. Dvaita mithyatva siddhi purvakatvāt advaita siddhehe. Advaita is well established by establishing the illusoriness, non-existence of the duality. Over. So that is what the Shastra does. Shastra negates the non-existence of the duality. And that is how you gain the knowledge, by negating the non-self. Sākṣi-rūpatvād, and this self is the witness for everything. Therefore, it is aprameyaḥ. Okay. Next is hṛṣīkeśaḥ. hṛṣīkeśaḥ. That is the next name. Here, Parashara Bhatta says, Tat karanānapi niyamakatvat. Karana, that is what he used for aprameyaḥ. It cannot be gained through the karana, the instruments. Instruments means sense organs. That is how he interpreted it. And here he says, even for that sense organ, that even those sense organs are ruled by, ordered by, controlled by this fellow, Vishnu. Therefore, he is a hṛṣīkeśaḥ. Hṛṣīka means sense organs. Isha means Lord. He is the Lord of sense organ. He is the one who rules the sense organs. That's the meaning he gives. Bhagavan Bhāshyakara interprets it in three different ways. One is, this is the Lord of the sense organs. Same meaning as Jiva. Or the one who controls the sense organs, in whose control the sense organ exists. In that sense, it is Ishvara, Paramātmā. Or like through the sun and moon's rays, Hṛṣīka means the happiness, one who gives happiness through the Kesha. Kesha means the rays. Through the rays of sun and moon, that is me, the self, the Vishnu. Third meaning. Okay. So, 1 Jiva, 2 Paramatma, 3 is Vishnu. So, in these 3 different meanings, he explains the hṛṣīkeśaḥ name. hṛṣīkeśaḥ is akaranta, being a word which ends with a, it will have the fourth case in aya. hṛṣīkeśaya, not re. In English, we write it as R-I-S-H. R-I-S-H-I-K-E-S-H. hṛṣīkeśaḥ. It's not hṛṣīkeśaḥ, it is H-R-I. hṛṣīkeśaḥ. Okay? Now, hṛṣīkeśaya. The Namavali will be Om hṛṣīkeśaya namaha. Om hṛṣīkeśaya namaha. Om hṛṣīkeśaya namaha. Om hṛṣīkeśaya namaha. Okay. Now, bhāṣya. hṛṣīkāṇī indriyāṇi. teṣāmīśaḥ kṣetrajñarūpabhāk. hṛṣīka means indriya, sense organs, sense organ. hṛṣīkāṇi in plural, indriyāṇi, sense organs. hṛṣīka means sense organ. Okay. Now, teṣāṃ, for those sense organs, īśaḥ, he is the Lord, which is kṣetrajñarūpabhāk, or in the form of kṣetrajña, the jiva. So, one who is in the form of jiva controls, rules the sense organs. That is hṛṣīkeśaḥ. That's the first meaning. Yadvā, or you can interpret it in another form, which is a indriyāṇi, means hṛṣīkāṇī indriyāṇi. You have to understand there is a hṛṣīkāṇi. hṛṣīkāṇi indriyāṇi, sense organs. Yasya vaśe vartante, in whose control they exist. Paramātmā hṛṣīkeśaḥ. That absolute self is what is called as hṛṣīkeśaḥ. The under whose control all the sense organ exists. That is, he is hṛṣīkeśaḥ. Okay. First is jiva, second is Ishvara, Paramatma. Third is the Vishnu, Ishvara form. Yadyevā, or another meaning, Surya-rūpasya, Chandra-rūpasya, jagat-prītikaraha, hṛṣṭāha, keshaha, rashmayah. So, through the rays of sun, or through the keshaha means hair, matter locks, the hair. So, the hair here is a rashmi, the rays. So, through whose rays, hair rays, in the form of moon or sun's rays, jagat pritikara, which brings happiness to the world, is hṛṣṭāha, from the root word hṛṣatuṣṭau, to bring happiness, to be happy. So, through the rays of sun or to the rays of moon, one who brings happiness is hṛṣīkeśaḥ. How do you know this? It is said, Surya Rashmir Harihi Keshah Purastad. Surya Rashmi, the rays of the sun is hṛṣīkeśaḥ, is the hair of Hari, Vishnu. That is what is in front of us, Purastad. Okay. So, iti shruti. This shruti established that the rays are equated with the hair of Vishnu or Shiva, whatever that is. Prashodharaditvat sadhutvam. This is a sudden thing. Prashodharatvat sadhutvam. What is Prashodharaditvat sadhutvam? Why it is Prashodhara? Sadhutvam means it is right. Prashodharatvadi means it is suddenly springing from somewhere without any top or bottom, which is this is a group of words. Prashodharadi gana. This is a group of words where something is declined in a specific way. Here, the question is, what is asadhu? See, normally it should be hṛṣīkeśaḥ, means hṛṣīkeśaḥ in short. Instead of she in short, she is in long. hṛṣīkeśaḥ. So, in the Prashodhadi Gana, this ikara becomes ikara. This short e becomes long e. Therefore, it is a proper way, proper form. There is no problem here in the form. Tatha cha uksham moksha dharme. And hṛṣīkeśaḥ is explained in this form. So, tatha cha uktam moksha dharme. this statement prachodharaditvat sadhutvam is a statement which springs suddenly, because Surya Rashmi iti Shrutehe Tata Choktam Mokshadharme. He is bringing Shruti and Smriti as pramanas, and suddenly he remembers, oh, there is this error, so we can correct that error also. That is the idea you have to understand. So, Surya Chandramasoho Shashvad Amshubhiḥ Keshasanghitaihi Bodhayan Swapayan Jaiva Jagat Uttishthate Prataka Bodhana Swapana Jaiva Jagato Harshanam Bhaved Agni Shomakratairyebhihi Karmabhih Pandunandana hṛṣīkeśo aham īśāno varado loka bhavanah iti. So, this is a statement from Moksha Dharma of Mahabharata. In Mahabharata Shanti Parva, there is a topic called Moksha Dharma. Okay, there it is said, Surya Chandramasoho Shashvat Amshubhihi Keshasanghitaihi Bodhayan Swapayancha Eva Jagat Uttishthate Prachak Bodhanad Swapanatcha Eva Jagatah Harshanam Bhavet Agni Soma Krutaihi Yebhi Karmabhihi He Pandunandana hṛṣīkeśo aham īśānah varado loka bhavanah. He says, Surya Chandramasoho, of the sun and the moon, Shashvat Amshubhihi, always through the rays, Kesh Sangitain, called the hair. The hair of a sun and moon, which is the rays of sun and moon, through which Bodhayan Swapayan Cheva, he wakes up people and he puts them to sleep. Jagat Uttishthate Prathak. This job is done independently in two different periods of time. Bodhanat Swapanat Seva, by waking them up and then putting them to sleep through the rays of sun and through the rays of moon respectively. Jagato Harshanam Bhavet. The world is happy. World is happy to wake up. That's a very great thing. Actually, when you wake up, you start crying or you start cursing. Thing is, you should be happy. Next day, you are awake, you are alive. You are right. So, Jagato Harshanam, everyone are happy when they wake up. And going to sleep, away from all these hassles, you are going to sleep. You should be happy also. So, by waking up people, it brings happiness. And by putting them to sleep also, through the rays of moon, this fellow brings happiness. Therefore, He Pandunandana, O son of Pandu, remember this, Agni Shoma Krataihi Ebihi. Agni Shoma, there is a fire sacrifice called Agnishtoma. Agnihi Soma is Agnishtoma. That, because Karma Bihi, through the karmas, that does not mean this is Agnishtoma Yaga. Agni and Soma. Agni is a reference to fire, which is sun, and the Soma is moon. The activities, Karma Bihi, through the activities, through the Ebihi Karma Bihi, through these activities, by waking them up and putting them to sleep, bringing them happiness, through these activities of sun and moon, hṛṣīkeśo aham, I am called hṛṣīkeśaḥ, and I am the Varadaha, one who gives boons. Loka bhavanah, this is how people see, the world sees me as hṛṣīkeśaḥ, the bestower of boons, the Lord of everyone, everything. Harshakaraha keshaha yasya sa hṛṣīkeśaḥ. That is one whose race, whose hair brings happiness. That is what is hṛṣīkeśaḥ. We'll see this. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.